A steal by Tippett. The game at his stick. He scores! OT in OT. Tippett wins it for Philadelphia.
This is episode 106 of the Liberty L. Danny Deemer here with Chris Stumpo.
As always, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I mean, there's really nothing to complain about on the hockey side of things. They haven't lost the game since the All-Star break. I'm not going to lie, going into the All-Star break, I don't know about you. I was a little concerned. Like, is this thing crumbling down? Is the insanity run, if you will, coming to a close? And having to sit on that losing streak for 2 weeks really just kind of made it worse, I feel like, because you're just sitting on a losing streak for 2 weeks with no chance to see your team get it back. But seeing the response that we've seen has killed all of that for me. And I'm interested in your thoughts in the last 4 straight wins.
The last 4 wins, I mean, not just from a winning perspective. I mean, they've been outplaying these teams, I mean, for most of the game. And it's been really fun to watch. We'll talk about Morgan Frost in a little bit. But I want to talk about the games right before, and I'll get into the 4 games we just won. Those games were weird because, we were playing Colorado, Tampa, Boston. We lost 6-2 to them. I mean, we got shut out by Detroit 3-0. But I mean, a lot of those games before the Detroit and Boston games, I feel like we were in them. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like we got steamrolled the entire time. So, I had a little bit of hope. I had a little bit of feeling of, okay, maybe they're just starting to come back down to earth to what we thought they were going to be, kind of thing. But like you said, the response since then has been, I mean, incredible. And they haven't been against bad teams either. I mean, Florida, 2-1 win there. Winnipeg, one of the best teams in the league. Seattle, I mean, I know they aren't as good as they record-wise as they were last year. I mean, but they're still a pretty solid team. And then Arizona, same thing with them. They play hard, man. There's a reason why Arizona upsets Toronto every once in a while. I mean, they're pretty annoying, and they have some really skilled players. I don't know his name. I might butcher it, like Massolini or something like that. 63. He's really, really, really skilled, underrated player. Obviously, they have Clayton Keller, and then who am I thinking of right now? Logan Cooley. So sneaky skill on that team. So seeing them do what they did the last 4 games, winning the way they have, outplaying Frosty, like I just said, it's just been, like you said, kind of re-energizing, if you will. And I'm sure the All-Star break was kind of like a nice reset because it came in a really good time.
I was just going to mention that. I wonder if they were a bit gassed because they did have a lot of games in a short amount of time leading into that stretch. And then they play the league's best, literally the league's best. So whatever. I think it's just the highs and lows of an NHL season. I think the beauty of what they've been able to do in the early seasons, such as not losing in regulation that much, allows you to have a little bit of a lull in February and recover from it like they have. I want to speak on the Florida win because that one is the most impressive one to me. 2-1 win out of the All-Star break. They lose that game, it could be entirely different. They lose that game, the Penguins win, the Devils win suddenly because they had games in hand on us. Suddenly they're catching up to us. We're on a what would it be at that point? 5-6 game losing streak.
Yeah.
After the All-Star break, but that was a gutsy win. 2-1 win. They threw it all on the line there. They were down 1-0. I think late in the second. Ended up pulling that one out, and from there, I mean, dude, the team went on a Cancun trip.
Yeah, that was cool.
They're locked in. They're locked in ever since. I love seeing it though.
What's cool, especially considering Verhaeghe went up on the power play 1-0 in the first period, and I did miss 75% of that game, but from what I've heard, they got out. The Flyers I'm talking about got outplayed by Florida the entire first 20 minutes. So considering how slow they came out and the fact that they're only down 1 must have been kind of a good. I mean, they were probably looking at glass half full kind of way because I mean, if you were getting outplayed that bad in the first 20 minutes, you're only down 1 against a team like Florida that's just relentless against the forecheck, constantly disrupting an attempted breakout. So that must have been nice coming into the second period. TK tied it up with his 23rd, and then that Noah Cates goal in the third period was fucking incredible, dude. Maybe should have passed it, obviously, if it doesn't go your way. if you look at it in hindsight. But I mean, just to get it to where he got it and that skill kind of play, you're kind of just like, where did that just come from? So it's nice to see him kind of contribute because he's been good, like you said, since he's come back from breaking his foot, which is crazy. I kind of forgot that he was out for almost a month and a half.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I agree. He's been trending well, and he's definitely been shutting me up because I was a bit of a hater leading in the All-Star break with him. But yeah, he's played well. I mean, I'm seeing him, especially in the ozone. I'm seeing him make plays. I'm like, oh shit, all right.
Yeah. Something we didn't talk about since our last episode. I mean, Owen Tippett, the extension. So I mean, we can get into that for a little bit because he's just getting back from an injury too. So he's just starting to get back into the groove of things, if you will. I mean, and you can really notice when he's missing in the lineup. You know, when he's not there, dude. I was like, holy shit, he really does open things up a lot with his speed because like he can go from 0 to 100 in like 3 seconds. Like the way he can drive lanes with his power, and I mean, we saw that spin around a goal. I mean, that was just fucking incredible. It's just those are the type of things that he does, and I feel like even I'm not talking to just anybody. I'm talking to myself too at this point. To kind of take for granted with him, he really does mean a lot to this team, and the way he plays and drives play at times is just when he's on his game. And I know it can be a little inconsistent, and he's going to be working at that. But when he's on his game, he's legitimately one of the best players on the team. I mean, we'll talk about Frost in a little bit. I can't wait to talk about him, but I really like that deal. I think it's he 8 years and then 6.2, I think it is. So, I mean, you're getting him at a decent price considering the cap's going up soon. And I know that's what a lot of people say with all these contracts now. But, I mean, you would think if that was factored into this deal, he would have been looking at a little bit more. But, I mean, only 6.2, considering it's going up soon for a guy who could potentially be a 30-goal scorer. So, I mean, I like those odds, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with what you said. You really notice him when he's out of the lineup. And I really didn't fully understand his impact on the squad until I watched games with him out of the lineup. And I was like, oh shit, like he really does have momentum changing, shifting goals. It like just in the heat of a game in transition, roofs one. I mean, he's tied the game late in a couple of games this season. And considering the player he was just a year or two ago and the strides he's made and the fact that he's done it here. Like Florida wrote him off. We believed in him. Torts believed in him. What kind of player are you? Remember that quote?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just nice to see him get rewarded. I think it's a good message to the rest of the team too. If you buy in, you commit, you'll be here.
Yeah. I mean, the kid's on pace for 30 goals this year. So he keeps it going. I know he missed a little bit with that injury. 30 goals in a 78 games season. I mean, that's a pretty good season if you ask me, considering the kid's only 24 years old. So I like those odds, man.
He just scores these goals sometimes where you're like, holy shit.
I know,
like,
dude.
Is that Owen Tippett? Like, or Evgeny Malkin?
He needs to hit the net more. I mean, Tortorella has talked about that in his post-game and pre-game interviews, but he really can, if he can put it all together, be a really dominant fucking player on a line, man. Like the way he can skate and shoot and power, it's just the combination of all of his skills. It's extremely intriguing. Like he's still raw in some aspects, and I think everybody can agree with that. And there's obviously risk that comes with this contract, but at the same time, it's hard not to see the potential with him. And we've already seen the small growth in the 2 years that we've had him. So, like I said, I like the risk. They're going to enjoy the Tippett wave. He's going to be here for a while. So, $6.2 million for a guy who's only 24 years old and could potentially take that jump and be more than a 50-point guy, maybe a 60, 70-point guy. That would be really nice, man. They locked him up. So, I'm here, Danny. I'm here. Flyers are fucking 4-0-0. Let's go.
He went from a first-round draft bust.
Yeah.
Florida wrote him off. He's in the Giroux trade. He's a reclamation project in the Giroux trade. And now, look, he's reclaimed. he's here. And it's nice to see. I mean, he went from a first-round bust to a potential 30-goal-a-year guy.
Yeah. I don't know where I saw it from, but somebody, I'll try to look it up as I'm talking about it. Somebody was saying that if Giroux would have forced his way to Colorado, and I just want to get your initial reaction on this because I don't know if you saw it. If Giroux forced his way to Colorado, except Florida, the package for him for Colorado would have been Justin Barron and a first-round pick instead of Freeman, NHL Watcher on Twitter. Freeman on 32 Podcast says if Claude Giroux went to Colorado instead of Florida, it would have been for Justin Barron and a first-rounder. And everybody's in the comments like, holy fuck. Thank God he forced his way to Florida because we would have definitely rather have Tippett over Justin Barron. And in hindsight, looking back on it, as of right now, 100%,
Oh, absolutely. Because in the moment, we were a little misled. We were told it was Newhook, right? In the moment,
yeah,
that's the name we were throwing. I don't know if it's officially rumored, but that was the Flyers Twitter land, writer land, asking point for Colorado. And so that was where the majority of fans kind of wanted the deal to happen with Colorado in the moment because we thought Newhook was involved. But if in hindsight we knew Justin Barron was involved, probably always would have opted for the Florida deal. I'd say Chuck Fletcher masterclass, but this was all Giroux. Giroux wanted to go to Florida. He kind of handcuffed the leverage, and the leaks got out way before the deadline. So
getting back what they got back is pretty decent. I mean, we're gonna get that first round pick this year. I mean, Florida's good, and then Owen Tippett, a guy who we just locked up for 8 more years. So that has potential to be an extremely good deal for Philadelphia, considering that Florida doesn't even have him anymore. So, he's literally an Ottawa Senator. So,
to me,
considering
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's so nice to have depth, and I would call Owen Tippett a depth player. He's obviously not a top line spearhead your franchise kind of player. It's so nice to have depth snipers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For so long, I've seen our lines 2, 3, and 4 just have to grit it out and work and earn goals. And it's nice to have a guy down there who just gets it in transition and just roofs it. And you're like, oh my God, he's not even the best player on the team either. He's a depth player and he's cost controlled and he could score. It's kind of foreign to me as a Flyers fan to have depth scoring like this, and it's young too. It's really exciting.
I mean, you can transition right into Ryan Poehling too, because he just signed that extension, 2 more years for him at $1.9 million. He gets a $500,000 raise, so he's another guy, 25 years old. Yeah, I know, right?
Honestly, what a pickup! Just the age, the speed, how he can match up against other teams' bottom sixes. I look at the New Jersey Devils, especially. If you're gonna play a team like that in a playoff series, you're gonna need a Ryan Poehling to match up with their speed down the line. And
absolutely.
And he's 24. That's the beautiful part. This isn't a Tyler Pitlick. You got him on 1 year. He's in his 30s. He's eventually going to be shipped off even after a good season. It's no, he can build on this and just be a solid depth piece for us for, at least the next 2 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, he's third. I mean, we lead the league. Our PK is second best in the league at 86.3%. And then we lead the league in shorthanded goals with 12. TK has 5. Poehling has 3. Walker has 2. Lawton has 1. And Garnet Hathaway has 1. So, I mean, Poehling's third in shorthanded goals on the team. Like you said, bottom 6 guy, 4th line, 3rd line guy at most, who, like you said, speed. We haven't had a guy with genuine skill. I mean, I'm not saying this guy's a star or anything, but genuine skill in the bottom 6, like you were just talking about with Tippett, with goal scoring. But with the speed that he has, the way he can open up, and I mean, that's why the transition game is so good. And we got rid of Provorov, replace him with Walker, guys who can skate, get it in transition. And then you got Poehling, who can take a puck and just go in 10 seconds. You know what I mean? So having that locked up, $1.9 million, I mean, that's perfect for a bottom sixer. 25 years old, like you said. So I like it, man. We're not going crazy. We're not handing him fucking 5 years at, you know what I mean? It's a nice deal. Yeah. It's a nice little raise for what he already has. And like we're paying him for what he is. It's nice to see us actually pay guys for what they are and not be like. I know I use this as like a example all the time, but when Dale Weiss signed with us and Exel was like, yeah, he could be like a 20, 25 goal guy. It's like, no, like, can we stop signing guys and trying to fit them into like a certain position or a certain role because you think that it could possibly happen? You know what I mean? Like, Mario Payoling is a perfect bottom sixer, and we paid him like one, and we extended him, gave him stability, which he kind of talked about after he signed the extension. Like, it's nice to finally find a home, and I really like it here and stuff. So give him stability, a little bit of a pay raise, so it works out for both sides.
Did you happen to see, and I assume you did, Tortorella's comments on Cam York?
About how he's like the best defenseman on the team right now? Like,
yeah. I love that shit. Just giving him praise. Because anyone who's watched the team this year, like, can see the strides York has made. He was thrusted into a high pressure position. Could have easily been a scenario where he doesn't live up to the 1D role, but he has. He's taken it and he's ran with it. I'm really impressed.
And now he's even. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to transition that into Drysdale as well. Like,
yeah, that's where I was going. Like, Tortorella is even putting York with Drysdale now, hoping that not only are they close off the ice, but hoping how he can help them out with the on ice stuff. Because like York has kind of like not mastered it, but has adapted so well. I mean, Tortorella was saying in that exact interview, I didn't even know if York was an NHL player in camp because of how Tortorella didn't like his last stretch of games last year heading into training camp, and the fact that he went from there to, I think Yorkie's our best defensive player on the team in a matter of months speaks volume to Cam York and the work that he's put in and the work that he's done and genuinely how good he is and how exciting that is, considering he's 23 years old. So not only is it great there, but like Tortorella, like kind of tipping his hat and looking back on it, what they did with York probably made more sense. I mean, we scratched our heads at the time. I know I did because I mean, like we all know he was good enough to play in the NHL at the time, but to get that confidence back in the AHL and get him back in the NHL, I think it spoke volumes because he went into this summer really working hard and trying to get his game to the level of where it is now. So if he just keeps building on that and showing Drysdale, who's coming from a man-to-man system, a strict man-to-man system in Anaheim, to a zone defense here. So it's going to take a little bit of adapting, but the fact that Tortorella trusts York to kind of like develop and not develop, but like help Drysdale ease into that transition and speak about how like it's not always good to have the coach yapping at a player. You know what I mean? It's good to have a player step in and be like, hey, this is how you do things. So it's not coach the player isn't always best for the player, if that makes sense, is what he was trying to say. So I like how he's kind of adapted to Tortorella, and that's something that we've talked about. Like he's really adapted to the new age NHL really well, and I think that's another good example of it.
Who isn't playing their best hockey under John Tortorella right now?
I
mean, I'm sure there's a few names, but
no,
the
that's
names
generally
that you
a really
want to pop off and improve and take steps have. Absolutely. Yeah. Owen Tippett, the player he's became under John Tortorella is night and day. Morgan Frost, listen, I still have complaints with the way Frost was handled, but at the end of the day, look what the hell he's doing right now. Yeah. I mean, I can't complain about anything. Like the way he's trending, well, I'm going to see Morgan Frost get meaningful minutes in the playoff game. Who am I to complain about what the hell happened in Game 5? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
But
January 1st, 15 points in 17 games. I mean, you can't complain. Anytime he's been given like free reign, he's just taken off with it, man. We can compare it to last year since January 1st. It's kind of like the same thing. Like a little bit of slow to begin because he doesn't know where he stands and he thinks he's going to get benched for every mistake he makes. But as soon as you're like, okay, Frost, just go out there and play your game, man. He just goes out there and does his thing, man. That was the best game personally that I've seen him play in a Flyers uniform. And I know he had the 4-point game against Florida last year. I know, but that was just he just like Tortorella said post game, man. He just put the team on his back last night. That was just incredible. He was just drew 3 penalties himself, just from his shiftiness and elusiveness and just cutting in and out
space.
Yeah,
just getting separation. Guy trips him.
I mean, listen to the top 4 in scoring since January 1st. You got TK, who's obviously number 1, 18 points in 18 games. Farabee, 16 points in 18 games. Frost, 15 points to 17 games. And then Tippett, 10 points and then in the 14 games because he missed a little bit. I mean, those top 4 is exactly like if you would have told me in October, hey, in February, since January 1st to then, these are your top 4 scorers on the team, and these are the points in those games. If you had told me it's Frost, TK, Farabee, and Tippett, I mean, that's exactly what we wanted, right? I mean, those are the 4 guys that you looked at and you're like, hey, if the Flyers are going to be good, those are the 4 guys that need to be good, you know?
Yeah, I would maybe lump in Coots, but Coots has always been two-way, and he's coming off an injury, so you never worry about Coots, no matter what. So even if he's not in the top 4, I'm not too worried about him. So
I was actually talking to Zach and Derek about him earlier a couple days ago. We basically have like 19-year-old Coots right now. Like he's the elite defensive player still, but you don't quite have the offense, and I think we'll see more of that offense next year as he gets back into the groove of things. But right now, we kind of just have like the elite side of Coots, and that's still a really good player. You know what I mean? So we have like early stage Coots right now.
Yeah, he's 2016 Coots is in there right now.
Absolutely. So not worried about him at all.
I'm gonna be honest. I'd pay a lot of money to get the conversation between Tortorella and Morgan Frost.
January 2nd. Yeah.
Yeah. I originally thought like, okay, it's just a players fired up conversation, and then Frost had a good game, and I'm like, all right, that's the response you want to see. But what I'm seeing now, what was said? He's playing entirely different. He's since that game too, or since that conversation, he has looked like the best player on the team outside of Travis Konecny. And to the point about Tortorella getting players to play their best hockey, I mean, he's reeled in Travis Konecny's inconsistency issues to a point where like Travis Konecny is just the guy now. Like he is the consistent. You can always rely on him. He's going to get his kind of guy, and the strides he's taken as a leader as well. But the consistency thing, because you would see it with TK, he would have a year like this, and then he would not have a year like this the next year. But so far under Tortorella, you've seen just 2 seasons where he has undoubtedly been the go-to guy, and he's embraced it.
Before we have Derek on to finish, I just want to get your opinion before he comes on, and he's definitely going to talk about this. I 100% agree with what you said with TK, and we obviously have the trade deadline looming. What are your thoughts on like the re-signing? Because we can only re-sign him after July 1st, so we would have to wait a little bit. But like, what's your thoughts on like the whole trading him, re-signing him? Like he is 27 years old, March 11th. Like, what's your whole deal with that? Like, what's your opinion? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the notion of cashing in on him. It's just I don't want to do it just to do it. Like I need to be genuinely wowed. I need a team to come out of the woodwork. I need a team to really want Travis Konecny and give us a package where even I, as a fan, and I can't like draw out this pack. I don't know what it is, but it has to be a package where I, as a fan, go, okay, I see why you greenlit this trade. I see why you did this trade. It makes sense for the future. I don't want them to do it and get an underwhelming return and then have to wait 4 or 5 years for some picks to pan out. And then you're watching them on the Phantoms, and then they get called out, and then they're back to the Phantoms. But if it's for a wowing trade, like a timeline fitting center, timeline fitting defenseman that makes sense, and you got to give to get. If it's a package where I'm like, okay, you had to give up a Travis Konecny to get this level of return back.
Yeah.
Then I can live with it because like I said, you got to give to get. I know at some point this regime is going to have to make a gamble move, a big swing move where, yeah, it might have people scratching their heads, but all great teams do this. They take the big swing eventually. I look at Florida. Florida won the President's Trophy, but then they got bounced by the Lightning, and they were like, we're going to take a swing, shake this entire thing up, go out, Tkachuk, reframe their entire franchise, and got to tip the cap to them for that. So, but like, the creativity, I've seen it there in the past. I need to see it going forward. Basically, where I'm at with this is it just depends on the return.
I always think of going off what you just said about how you kind of have to give and get, and teams eventually have to take big swings if they want to compete. With Tampa, I kind of think of the Sergachev trade. Didn't they trade Drouin for Sergachev? And at the time, it was just like Drouin was like the high end prospect, but now looking at hindsight, Sergachev's like one of probably the best defensemen on that team, if not him. I mean, Hedman's still there, obviously, but I mean, at this point, Sergachev like might be really, really close to Hedman, if not on the same level in terms of just defensive play. Sergachev, I know he just got hurt after coming back, but I always think of that trade, like big gamble kind of trade. At the time, people were like, "Oh, that's like," there were people on both sides complaining, but looking back on it, like that really helped them. I mean,
no, that trade was huge in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously they have what they have in like Point and Kucherov, and that helps too, Vasilevsky. But like defensively, I mean, they have Hedman, but like other than that, they don't really have any other guys defensively other than Sergachev. Like if they don't make that move, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying maybe they don't win cups, but I mean, that's a really fucking big move. And that's a gamble. And that's exactly what like popped into my head when you were just talking about that. So yeah, if you might eventually have to make that move. Like you said, I mean, I agree with what you say about TK. You have to get blown away. And you can't just make the trade to make the trade. You kind of compare it to maybe the Kevin Fiala trade where they got Brock Faber and then a first round pick. That's what, like, you'd have to give me a prospect that I know is going to be really good, and then a first round pick for TK at this point.
This is random, but that trade was blockbuster in the moment. The Sergachev Drouin. Isn't it crazy how those two teams ended up meeting in the finals just a couple of years later?
Yeah.
And Tampa obviously wiped the floor with them. Montreal, that was just a feel good story. They were injury riddled to begin with, but it's just crazy how that. Completely forgot about that. Like Sergachev and Drouin matched up in the finals. But.
And the fact that, like, looking back since 2015, 2014, seeing how Tampa like built their team up until now is like really cool to look back on. Like all of, like the guys that they like, especially that trade. I mean, that's a big trade when you look back on how they got to the point where they are. But and it's like all those guys are homegrown, man. Like they didn't, other than Sergachev, like who else? They didn't trade for anybody else, you know. So it's just. I've always had respect. Like, people always got like annoyed with them, and like at a certain point, like with the Kansas City Chiefs, you just get annoyed seeing the same fucking team dominate. Obviously, unless it's your team. But I've always had a respect for them for the way they built their team. I don't know.
Tampa's the one dynasty that doesn't annoy me, and at the end of the day, I think it's because they eliminated the Islanders twice in the Eastern Conference Finals on the way there. But I don't know what it is. I just weirdly like them. I weirdly like them. And like you said, it's easy to root for the consistent contender, the dynasty. It's super easy. Like Golden State Warriors, after a while, it's like, dude, get these guys out of the finals, you know?
Yeah, right.
But with the Lightning, it's like, I want to see them match up against the Leafs again this year. And I want to see them win it. And I want to see them go on a run, unless it's against us, of course. I'm not used to saying that. I'm not used to having a playoff team in the race, but.
Isn't that crazy, dude? Like, it's February 13th, and the Flyers are third in the Metro, 29, 19, and 6.
Dude, this winning streak has been so big for padding that, especially because these other teams they're fumbling. They're not reeling it in, if you will. Like the Devils, the Penguins, they're dropping one and winning one, dropping one, and we just keep on winning.
Yeah, what did you say about the Devils? After the Stadium Series game, if we win that game, it'll be 10 points difference. Yeah.
So the Devils actually won their game tonight.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
So
that changes, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, they were losing in that game. I was hoping that they would have lost, but they didn't. Nonetheless, though, they have a lot of issues, and
they do.
I just don't see them getting in. Especially because we're the team in the way, and I can't in my right mind see us falling so that they can step up. But this Stadium Series game is big, man. It really is.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
We put them away in regulation right here. It gets kind of insurmountable for them. It's a long climb. Like catching up 8 points with 20 or so games left is insanely hard, especially with OT and all that.
And they have not been consistent this year, so for them to consistently string along wins towards the end will be kind of hard for them, in my opinion.
Yep, and that's why I think this one's big, because if they beat the Flyers, you have to think there's a target on the Flyers' back from the Devils, and vice versa. Like the Flyers aren't dumb; they know the teams that are nipping at their heels and the teams that they have to put away. And this is going to be a high intensity game, and I feel like if the Devils are to win this one, especially in dominating fashion, they might actually take this and kind of smell blood in the water. But I just hope it's the reverse effect. I hope we just stomp them out right here.
I really hope so, dude. 8 p.m. right at MetLife on ABC. Yep. Like, I'm fucking ready, man. Flyers, Devils, and if you would have told me in the beginning of the season that this game would have meant anything in terms of like, hey, the Flyers aren't actually in a playoff spot during this game, I wouldn't have believed you. So it's as crazy as this sounds, and I know like nothing can emulate the playoffs, but like I feel like we're gonna get a little bit of taste of that, Danny. A little bit of taste of what it's going to be like if they actually do make the playoffs, because we haven't felt that in years.
You know what emulates the playoffs? 100,000 fans in an outside stadium. Absolutely. Yeah. It may even have like a little bit more to it, honestly. Maybe not. But like, you know what I mean? It's going to feel like a special event. Like, I look at the Flyers Stadium Series game against the Penguins. That year was horrendous. There's nothing to take away from that year. I mean, the game after Wayne Simmons goes, it's a sad moment. Like, there was nothing fun about that season, but that game in particular, the stakes felt high. It felt like a playoff game. Yeah. And then now it's like this is it. This is for the third Metro spot. They're gunning for us. This is like that game times 10 to me.
Fuck yeah.
And we're on the road too. Like, I want to shut all those New Yorkers up, dude.
It's gonna be dude. It's a huge game. I can't wait. We do have some questions, so you want to get into those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, our boy Alex. He goes, predictions for each of the following players at the deadline: Walker, Sealer, Stahl, Lawton, Risto.
I got Walker and Lawton gone, and the rest are here.
Okay. Yeah,
I think they finally pulled the trigger on Scott Lawton.
Yeah, I think Walker and Lawton get packaged, to be honest with you.
That's the hope. I would love that, because that return could actually excite me, I feel like.
You would have to eat the contracts, like eat 50% or bring on a contract. But if you do that, like you said, I think that return could be fucking nice. I do think you could take Walker, Lawton, either retained or take back another bad contract and definitely get a first back. I think Ristolainen is the wild card. I would not be shocked if Ristolainen left. So it's either going to be one of Walker or Risto. I agree with Danny. I think they finally pulled the trigger with Lawton. I don't see Stahl going anywhere. I don't think any team's going to give up anything for him, nor do I think any team thinks he would add anything to them right now. And I don't think Sealer's going anywhere. So, yeah, I think...
Yeah, Stahl, and like, I don't mean to be a douchebag, but Stahl is like essentially... this sounds so douchey, but he's like a cheerleader right now in the locker room. Like, he's like a vibes guy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know he's subbing in on some nights and playing games, but for the most part, he doesn't like tip the balance of the decor or the lineup or roadblock anybody. So like, he's not going to go anywhere because no one's going to like him. But even him staying is like whatever.
Like, they might trade Walker and call up. No, they wouldn't call up anyway because you have Zamula, who's they keep going to 7 days. So I don't know, man. It's going to be really interesting. Could they move two defensemen? Like, I've been debating with myself back and forth. Do they move? Like, they could potentially move one of Walker or Ristolainen and then Sealer or Stahl. Like, you never know, dude. Like, if a team's like, hey, like, we want that veteran presence on our young playoff aspiring team, like, who knows, dude? Like, they could trade two defensemen, have Zamula slot. I mean, they could trade Zamula too. Like, I mean, that's a wild card as well. They don't seem like they're totally in love with him. And he's 23, 24 years old. So, I mean, but like, they could do that and then call up Adard and like slot him in there. So, I mean, I think he's been pretty good. You have Andrea knocking at the door as well. So, I mean, you have a couple of guys and with the Phantoms who could potentially come up if they do decide to move one or two guys on that back end. So there's a lot of A lot of
question
avenues,
marks.
Danny. Yeah. It's a good question, though. I like
well,
that.
I mean, the creativity has been there. For the most part, this front office has been unpredictable. So it's not for the majority of our time as Flyers fans, everything has been predictable. Like they're not going to go out and get the big fish, blah blah blah. But this regime is kind of like thus far put like I know it's early, but they've put that to bed thus far. They've kind of I don't know, they've been creative, they've been exciting. So I have no reason to believe that they're not going to do the same here. Like I don't think it's going to be the normal cookie cutter Chuck Fletcher deadline. Like I'm expecting some fireworks for sure.
I mean, like we have multiple people with sources already coming out telling us how like they're a playoff team, man. They're fielding calls. I mean, Emily Kaplan just said something on Twitter a couple hours ago about that.
That also plays into their favor, and I think that's why they're not super quick to be like, yeah, we're shopping this guy. Please call it. Like that's why it's a little bit more low key than that. Like they're taking calls, but they're not in a rush to move him. It's because they're a playoff team. And
yeah, absolutely.
It actually works in their favor. Like, you want this guy? Well, we're probably going to see you in the playoffs. So you're going to have to pay us a premium if you really want him. Because you're going to have to see us in the playoffs. Like, you want to take away from our depth. Like, we are a playoff team. You want to that's going to cost you. We are not a team.
You better. Dude, like, he's like, you want Scott Lawton? Do you know we're in a fucking playoff team? Do you know the vibes that he gives off in the fucking locker room?
And that helps, like, all across the board with his value.
Yeah, absolutely.
It helps, like, making the deal. Yeah.
I mean, Danny's not dumb, man. Like,
no.
I've been saying it for months. Probably a year now, Danny. And I'm talking to you. They're going to walk into this draft with 3 first-round picks. They're not going to pick three times either. Like, they have something up their sleeve. If you're not going to be picking top 5, and acquiring talent like that, if you're picking in the teens and you have 3 first-round picks potentially, which I really do think they end up with another one, you have to make a move like that, right? I think something's coming, Danny. I really do.
I agree. I mean, we talked about it on text last night. Seeing what they've seen this year, knowing that Michkov he's here. He's just waiting to be activated. Like if he was in the NHL right now, he'd be lighting it up. Like we're not going to deny that, right? You have to think that this doesn't this speeds up the timeline a little bit, not to the point where they're completely altering course, but I don't see a scenario where they go into the draft with picks 16, 21, and 26, and then pick those guys and then have to wait 4 years just to see them on the Phantoms before that you can even sniff Michkov. I doubt that's their thinking.
I generally don't think so either, man. Like I think. I mean, you can vouch for me. How long have I been saying that? Like they're going to package up picks. Like, and this was way before I even thought the fact that we could potentially have 3 first-round picks entering this draft. Like I've been saying it for a while. Like they have to package up picks to go and do something. If this is the way they're going to do it, they're not going to be picking top 5 next year. Like they have guys on this team that are like just too good. Especially if Frost keep playing the way he has. Yorkie, Drysdale, Tippett, Konecny. If Konecny stays, just Farabee. I mean, he's one of the best 5-on-5 players in the league this year, advanced stats wise. I mean, he's just. They're not going to be picking top 5, top 10. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so if this is the way you're going to go, and Michkov's coming over soon, you're going to have to get creative. And I'm excited for what they do, man. That question kind of just had us going off the rail there.
The quick rebuttal to that is always like, historically, it's hard to trade up. Nobody likes trading up.
Yeah.
But historically, not a lot of teams have 3 first-round picks to offer you. You know, like that if you are let's say GM of a really bad team, you're starting a rebuild, that's a little bit enticing. I mean, this draft isn't 2023 after all. It has good players. Every draft is at the top has
nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see a scenario where a team starting a rebuild can sell that to their fan base. Like, hey, this high pick is gone, but look, we have 3 firsts now. And that like an entire organization could build something with that from the ground floor, but that doesn't fit our timeline though. I guess that's my point. Like that would fit a Sharks timeline, that would fit a like maybe a Ducks timeline, but for us, don't see them, especially if they are to resign a guy like Konecny.
Yeah.
Why are you going to draft 3 guys in the mid to late first round to wait 5 to 6 years? Like by then, Konecny is going to be the anchor contract by the time those guys are here.
Yeah.
So
the worry with that is like our pick right now would be what? Late 20s. And then Florida would also be late 20s because they're one of the best teams in the league. And then whoever we get is probably going to be late 20s because they're a playoff team. If we get another, like, honestly, it might be a 2025 first round pick. We might have 2 first round picks this year and then 2 next year.
I think as of right now, we'd be 22.
22. Like, we're not trading up top 10. Like, a team in the top 10 is not trading all the way back to 22, even if they do get 3 first round picks in the deal. I just don't see that. So, like, I still think those picks are going to go to an active roster player. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're going to package up to go up in the draft. Yeah. I think it's going to go to in a deal to go get a guy that's already on an active roster that a team wants to move or like move on from, or the Flyers think that they can really just turn it, like, mold into like a really good center or a defenseman. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way they can trade up that. Like, you really just don't. I mean, Alex DeBrincat went for like what, 8th overall, 9th overall? I kind of forget, but you rarely see teams, especially that far, like 20s up to like even the teens would be crazy if they could do that. So I'm really looking for them to just make another type of, not another one, but just draft pick and a roster player, or multiple draft picks and a roster player for a young guy. You know what I mean?
I'll say this: if you broke into my house, put a gun to my head, and was like, "What is the Flyers' plan?" You need to tell me right now. I don't care if it's wrong. You got to tell me right now. What do you think is the Flyers' plan? And I still think it's Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
I still think it's Trevor Zegras. I think the injury halted things a little bit. I just refuse to believe that there wasn't some conversations had during the Drysdale-Gauthier situation. And I think it's going to be revisited. I really do. I think it's just one of those things where you do it in the summer. It's not a midseason. You don't trade Trevor Zegras off an ankle injury in mid-February. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. But I do think that they're like, okay, we'll call you again in the summer. We'll call you again in the summer. We're going to have a lot of assets. We're going to have some interesting pieces. We'll call you again. We'll do business.
I like
again.
that. That's spicy. I'm going to clip that. It is. Yeah, that's interesting.
Definitely that's like gun to my head. It just makes sense.
What do you think's gonna happen?
They need a center. They need skill. Anaheim is both. Not. He doesn't really fit Anaheim's current timeline, which I don't fully get. If I'm an Anaheim fan, that would piss me off. But he doesn't fit that timeline, if you will. They want to get rid of him. He's quote unquote underperforming. I think the time is now. I do, before he finally puts together an insane season and that Anaheim wants to keep him.
No, I would love it. Dude, could you imagine Zegras, Michkov, and like Frost on the same fucking line or some shit?
Dude, what if it's June, right? We're going into the draft. We have 3 firsts, and we're still sitting here like, what's the plan? Are they really going to go pick 3 first round? And then right by draft night, the Zegras trade gets announced. The Ska buyout with Michkov gets announced. Just like that, they're entering UFA and draft night with a fucking contending roster.
I mean, dude, I'd be in heaven.
I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun with the thought of it. But like, this regime has got me thinking that that's not out of the realm of possibility. I no longer feel like, I'm just thinking like a orange colored glasses on, you know?
Yeah.
Like at some point they're gonna have to make a move like that. Like you said it during the show. Like your plan can't just be Michkov. It can't just be like, let's just throw Michkov in and run it. Like there has to be something else cooking.
I mean, and that's Derek's. And I hope he'll be on in about 10 minutes to speak his part. He'll definitely talk about this, but just to kind of preview it. And that's his thing with the whole like re-sign TK. And absolutely, TK right now is an elite producer. But when Michkov comes over in the timeline that we think he's going to come over, like Derek's is kind of like, are we going to be paying this guy? Because he's going to demand what, $9-10 million. And is he going to be that player when he's like 30-ish, 31 years old, 32 years old, when Michkov's in his prime and we're surrounding him with Travis Konecny and like don't really have any other money for anybody else. So he'll definitely expand on that when he comes and talks, and I definitely want him to do that. But it's
I
definitely
absolutely
like I see both sides. Yeah.
100%. 100. I can absolutely see the scenario where 4 years into that deal, we're sitting here as fans going, man, Michkov needs some help. And then we look at the cap friendly and realize why he's not getting that help. I could easily see that scenario. Don't get it twisted. I think that's probably more probable than the flip side, which is Konecny becomes a Flyers legend and wins here and this, that. Because that's the only way those 8-year contracts to a guy who's 27 is worth it if he wins. If he wins enough to make you forget about the last 2 to 3 years, which I could easily see the scenario where that doesn't happen. So,
I mean, yeah, you're right.
It's
yeah.
I don't envy. I'm sorry. I'll just end this on this point. I don't envy the organization and this decision because it's kind of a lose-lose or a win-win. Either way you want to think of it, but it's you sign Konecny. Yeah, there's some fans who are happy. Then there's some fans who are looking big picture who are definitely not happy. You don't sign Konecny. There's a lot of people in the stands who have number 11 jerseys who are not going to be happy with that. But in 2 to 3 years after that, when they see the fruits of it, that they may come back. But I don't envy the front office.
Can I say something real quick? Like, is it a little bit weird to you that it's they can only sign TK on after July 1st, and these rumors that like, oh hey, the Flyers are re-signing TK, or like hey, they're talking about re-signing TK, are coming out now? Like, isn't that a little odd, or is it just me? Am I reading too deep into that?
Like, what do you think the coincidence is there?
Like, for me, I mean, this might just me reading way too deep into it, but like, it's maybe the Flyers trying to get it out to other teams that we're thinking about re-signing them. If you want them, like, come get them because we're thinking about doing it, kind of thing. Like, trade for him now, or trade deadline's coming up, and like, why would these rumors come out now and not in the summer? Because I mean, you can't do it now.
Maybe they're opening the door for a sign and trade to maximize value.
I don't know, but
that actually makes sense if you think about it, because you would get more value, because obviously someone doesn't want to trade for Travis Konecny and then have to go through negotiations. If they're putting it out to the media now, hey, this is his number, and teams get comfortable with like, okay, I could see our team paying Travis Konecny that, and then it plants the seed early on for a sign and trade. So I do, I can see that.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little odd that it was just. I was like, oh yeah, maybe they'll resign him soon. Then I remembered. I was like, yeah, that can't happen until July 1st. So, I mean, it could just and like we said, we've talked about it so many times. The shit doesn't leak from the Keith Jones Philadelphia Flyers. Do you know what I mean? Unless he wants it to be leaked.
Yeah, I mean, starting with the Michkov draft,
we didn't know about Cutter Gauthier until fucking 7 p.m. on a Tuesday against the Penguins.
Literally the night before that trade, I'm making hype video highlights of them. So
that's what I'm saying. So like, you're telling me this got out? And I know it's just like extending an already active player. It's not like,
you're right. That's a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point. If something's getting out, it's purposeful. Because if they don't want something to get out, it doesn't get out. That's a fantastic point. Anything that you see from the Flyers that leaks or gets out, they want it there.
Yeah, I mean, this Flyers, the Keith Jones-led Flyers, from what I've seen, yeah. And guess who's here? Perfect timing to not defend, but to articulate on his TK point. The one and only Derek. Let's see if he's underwater or not. Derek? Oh, no.
That's not a good sign.
Derek? Oh, no, he's not here. All right, well, we'll get him back soon. So, but no, seriously, like I do feel like that's a pretty not weird thing, but something that I wanted to mention to you. I'm glad that we're having this conversation about it, because I was kind of like,
Because if something as massive as meeting with Michkov in private doesn't get out, and Cutter Gauthier off a World Juniors tournament getting traded to, if those things aren't leaking out, then what? Like, they're taking calls on Scott Lawton. Like, they want that out there. You know what I mean? Like, if the big shit isn't getting out, there's no like that's purposeful. I agree. What's up, Derek?
Derek?
Yo,
there he is.
Okay, we're good. Sorry about that.
You're okay. We're okay. We wanted you to just kind of expand on your whole Konecny thing because we just talked about like the pros of signing him and what it could mean, but like we really wanted you because we really thought your point on that was pretty good.
Okay, so my whole thing with signing Konecny is that ultimately you are about to pay a guy $9 million when he is unlikely to help you for the period that you're really looking to need help, which is when Michkov is in his prime. Like, it's great that we're having a great year. It's great that we're fighting to make the playoffs. That's all awesome. Ultimately, when you draft Matvei Michkov, the most important years of your franchise come when Matvei Michkov is 23 to 26 years old. And if we are dedicating $9 million of our cap to a guy who does not figure to be worth $9 million when that day comes, I just don't understand the point. I don't get it. I mean, it makes sense for this team. It doesn't make sense for the team that we are ultimately valuing, or the team that we should ultimately be prioritizing.
Danny?
Yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about when we listed the pros and cons. And I was saying I actually see more of the con side to that argument. I actually think the pro side of it just pleases fans who love Konecny. And while that's great, it doesn't really translate to winning Stanley Cups. It's just good PR. I could easily see the scenario where 3-4 years from now we need to get Michkov some help. We need to get him some top line help, and we can't get that help because we have a $9 million guy who's 32. So I absolutely can see that side of it, 100%.
I think everybody, and a lot of the responses I get on Twitter is kind of focused on like when Michkov is 21 years old, which is really impatient to me. Like, everybody has this idea that we are just going to be a good team. Okay. We are going to be a great team. And then Michkov is going to come in and then he's 21 years old and he's going to push us over the top. I feel like that is setting up not only Michkov, but the entire organization to fail. The expectations that the people who want to extend Konecny for $9 million is essentially that Michkov is going to fly right over from Russia and start winning Stanley Cups. Do we hold anybody to that standard? Do we hold Connor McDavid to the standard of pop up in the league in your rookie season and start winning Stanley Cups? I don't think we do. And yet that is the standard we're setting for Michkov if we're extending Konecny. And it seems like what we did to Giroux all over again.
Yeah, it does. And this is also, I'm going to throw this in there, and I'm not taking sides, but Konecny, he's on pace. He's 26 years old, 27 on March 11th. He's on pace for 74 points in 82 games this year. And his career high is 61. And that was in 2022, 2023, and 2019, 2020. So, I mean, this guy's almost 27 years old. His career high is 61 points. He'll probably surpass that this year, 74. But, like, I see that point. I really do. I mean, he's going to want more than $9 million. I mean, like that you said it there. I saw you say it on Twitter. You don't think his agent is going into this negotiation with the fact that the cap's going up, baked into the conversation and baked into the contract negotiation. So they're going to want more than 9. And I mean, like, you look at some of the guys who make $9 million. I mean, like Johnny Hockey, Matthew Tkachuk, Stone,
Nikita Kucherov,
Cooch, Point, Rantanen. Like, is he those guys? Because I love Konecny, but I really do see your point, man. Because if it's like 8 by like 8, I think I'd be cool with that.
He's going to make over $1 million more a year than Jack Hughes if we sign him to that contract.
Yeah, I mean, and Jack Hughes was a bargain deal when he signed it.
He was.
It was a little bit of a risk when they did it because it was before he broke out into what he was. So it's hard to I didn't compare it to the fucking Ovechkin contract because Ovi signed that deal how long ago? If Ovechkin was signing a deal when he was 27, now he would get probably, but you can't compare those two at all. He's not Ovechkin, but
while the Jack Hughes deal is a risk, it's also an example. You do not want to sign the 27-year-old who just now proved himself and wants fair market value. If you're a rebuilding team, you want to take a risk like the Devils took on Jack Hughes. The Devils had justifiable reason to believe that Jack Hughes would turn into something that made $8 million look like a bargain, and that's what happened. The Flyers are going to sign Konecny, assuming they do, with the idea that he'll just barely be worth $9 million. I don't understand the logic for a rebuilding team. I don't.
I'm going to run something by you real quick that I just ran by Danny right before you hopped on. But don't you think the fact that the new lead Flyers and how the Cutter Gauthier thing never got out, the Michkov coming to the skate zone over in the summer never got out. But don't you think the fact that the Konecny, we're re-signing him, or we're thinking about re-signing him, or we're talking to his agent, despite the fact that they can't do it until July 1st is kind of odd? Or do you think that's just normal, or it's just a contract kind of thing?
I will say it is odd, so I don't want to say they're definitely going to do it. It's odd, but it's also, I can see why it would happen that way, in the sense that Konecny is a fan favorite. They probably believe correctly that a lot of people aren't going to think too hard about the dollars and the years and the timelines and all that, and are just going to go, yay, we re-signed Konecny. I mean, ultimately, remember when DeMarco first reported that Owen Tippett's camp was going to ask for $7 million in an extension, and we all kind of laughed him out of the room? Not DeMarco, but we laughed Owen Tippett's agent out of the room.
Yeah.
What ultimately ended up happening in 2 months? Owen Tippett signed for 6 something.
Yeah.
Within $1 million of the figure that got him laughed out of the room.
Yeah. And the fact that he probably took a hometown discount to get that figure back. I mean, they probably did want 7, but they're like, if you give me 8, if you give us 8, we'll bump it down to 6.2, because he wanted stability apparently. So
yeah, it's classic negotiating. You start with 7, and then all of a sudden you make it feel like the other party got a deal when they talk you down to your actual number. And what made me interested, but also fucking terrified, was DeMarco didn't put out, Konecny's camp is going to ask for 9, like he put it with Tippett. What he said was Konecny will get well into the 9s. So
that did scare me. I'm not going to lie. I was like, does that mean 9.7? Does that mean 9.6? What does that mean?
Does that mean, even if it's 9.5? Oh my God. This dude.
Yeah. That's a lot, dude.
We're just not at that point. And I mean, okay, look, here's my challenge for everybody who thinks we are at a point to where we can re-sign Konecny for $9.5 million. Which single player can we add onto the roster right now to win a Stanley Cup? Because everybody remember when we were going to sign Johnny Gaudreau for this same dollar amount, and everybody's like, oh my God, we can't do that. We're not a Johnny Gaudreau away from winning a Stanley Cup. Now, fast forward 2 years, and everybody thinks we're a Travis Konecny away from winning a Stanley Cup. That's apparently the argument. I don't understand. Or is it, I guess Travis Konecny is just such an entertaining figure, and don't get me wrong, he's a really entertaining figure. He's a great player. But at the same time,
he's good. This isn't us saying he's bad.
No, look, the only reason this is a conversation is because he's good enough that he's going to get 9 something.
Yeah.
It's just that he's not good enough that I want to throw away any concept of a rebuild or the timeline or anything else, because Travis Konecny getting $9 million is the most important thing in my world. It is not.
Derek, one point I made to Chris before you came on is since they're leaking out the numbers already, and I know they did it with Tippett and ended up signing him, but since they're already getting like a framework out there of what the deal is going to be like, do you think they're planning a seed for a potential sign-in trade maybe, and they're just getting the number out to get other organizations, other front offices just comfortable with what that number is going to look like going into the talks? Or
that is interesting. It's certainly possible. I mean, sign-in trades in the NHL are so interesting, especially at this dollar amount, because it's always a question of who has the cap space and who actually wants to do it. Like, you know, for all the same reasons that we're sitting here and saying, I don't know about extending Konecny, who in the NHL fits both of these two categories I'm about to say? One has $9-point-something million of cap space just lying around. Two is a Travis Konecny away from contending for the Stanley Cup.
None.
I don't really think anybody. So you're kind of hoping, and I'm not saying that this can happen, but you're kind of hoping that like the Ottawa Senators from the Alex DeBrincat deal. And I don't mean the Senators now. I just mean that like a team thinks they're the Ottawa Senators back when the Senators made the DeBrincat deal. That like, oh, now is their time to go contend.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like maybe Anaheim really thinks that if their entire roster doesn't simultaneously die, that they're actually a good team.
I'll read you off the top 6 of the projected cap space right now. So you got Chicago 8.5. No. Ducks 8.4, which you just said. Buffalo at 8. So Buffalo could be like a team that, hey, maybe TK or something like that. Nashville is another team with 7.9. Then you got Columbus, Arizona. Then Detroit has 2.7. So that's where it kind of ends.
There also could just be some more maneuvering from now until
Agreed.
July.
Like that whole spiel wasn't to say it's impossible, by the way. Like this wasn't me trying to shit on Daddy's idea or anything. Not at all. It's more so just me thinking aloud. God damn, it is hard to make deals in the NHL today.
Yeah. Well, LTIR though, Tampa has 7.5. It looks like current cap space. I'm looking at on cap.
Oh man,
Rangers have 4. Minnesota has 4. The Devils have 10 with LTIR. Washington has 11 with LTIR. Damn. Calgary has 2. So, yeah, there are some teams with cap space, but definitely I understand what you're saying, because even if they do trade for Konecny, you're going to have to re-sign them. So, probably not going to happen.
The two teams that make some sense to me are Minnesota and Nashville.
Nashville
makes a lot of sense to me.
Nashville makes a ton.
Yeah, I
can
just weirdly see him in a Predators jersey.
Too.
Like it's just I don't know why.
Yeah, and they have the cap space, and they're not tanking. It's not like they got to preserve their rebuild, and they kind of need some dudes not named Philip Forsberg who can score. They're kind of like seriously. A one-line team right now. That makes a lot of sense.
Give me your defenseman that you grow on trees over there in Nashville, dude.
Yo, they got Tanner Melendijk last year, dude. Give me him. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take him for sure.
I'll never forget during their cup run. I think one night me and Stums went out. We got drunk. We were in an Uber, and we were like, "Dude, how do they always have a defense that good?" And we put up their cap friendly, and it was just 1 through 6, all elite and cost controlled. Meanwhile, we're paying bombs.
You pulled up their top 6, and you saw the Hockey Hall of Fame.
All cost controlled too, dude. Like Ekholm.
Yeah, it was like Ryan Ellis, $4 million.
Roman Yossi, 5 million.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude.
Matthias Ekholm, $4 million. PK
for like 6
Subban.
years. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, and then we're handing Dale Weiss like 5.
Handing Andrew McDonald, giving Andrew McDonald shares of Comcast, dude.
Rice is kind of calling us out here. Rice, enough with the trade talk. What team do you want to see most in the first round? Who do you want to avoid at all costs? Because boys, buyers, or sellers, this team knows how to finish, and we are going to the playoffs.
I love it.
I fucking love that, dude. I love it. Because guess what, Derek? We're going to the fucking playoffs, dude.
It's more likely than not at this point. I mean,
it's crazy, isn't it?
I know you want trade.
No, definitely trade the whole roster, okay? I want the whole team in China by yesterday, but even if I get my wish, we're still making the playoffs with the AHL squad.
Exactly. Yeah. Trade the whole team. Elliot Desnoyers, first line in the playoffs.
I'm with it. I'm honestly with it, dude. I would be so into that fucking series, bro. If they were just like fucking, yo, Desnoyers, 2C, bro. Frost is in fucking Detroit. Let's go. But seriously, man, like third in the Metro, 64 points. The second wildcard team, Detroit, has 60. So, like, even if we don't stay where we are, like, we still have a shot with a wild card, man. Like, it's pretty cool because we talked about the fact that, like, they could have 3 first-round picks depending on what they do trade deadline time. So, like, the fact that they have the leverage because, like Danny said earlier on the podcast, they can call a team. Maybe it's an Eastern Conference team that wants to make the playoffs. I'm like, hey, we might see you in a couple months. So, like, if you want Scott Lawton, you're going to have to fucking pay for him. So, the fact that they have that leverage heading into the trade deadline and then just making the playoffs is great for your younger players like Frost, like York, like Drysdale, like Tippett, like Konecny's 27. But, like,
yeah, fuck Konecny. He's ancient.
Both?
Like, that. I read about that dude in the 1800s history textbook.
But, like, the fact that they're getting – I mean, I know it's cheesy to say, like, the fact that you're getting that experience in the playoffs for these younger guys and you might still sell off the assets that you have, and then the fact that you could walk into the playoffs – into the draft with the picks that you have is just – it's enticing, man. Like, I really do think Briere has a ton of avenues, and if you're not going to be picking top 5, like I said earlier, Derek, you didn't hear this. If you're not going to be picking top 5, top 10, which they're not going to be with the team that they have now, you're going to have to get creative. And the fact that they might have 3 first-round picks, something's happening. Me and Danny have already put it in stone. Something is happening at this draft. Don't know what it's going to be, but, like, they're going to make a move, man.
Something horrific. Danny is not cooking. He did not request a trade. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Wait, Danny. Derek was saying something about me and him were going back and forth the other day. He's like, Danny cannot make a trade unless the player requests it. Like, he was
like, that's kind of funny, actually, because every player that he's traded, I think, in some way or another, has requested or had to waive something.
Dude, Lucas Sedlak. I mean, I know he wasn't the GM.
Lucas Sedlak requested the trade to
He woke up one day and he was like, "I'm gone." Like, I mean, I know it has nothing to do with the trade request, but the fact that we were just talking about players dipping, that was one of the funnier things that's happened to the Flyers, and nobody really talks about. That dude literally just woke up one day and was just like, you know what?
He's like, I had enough of this shit, dude.
Oh, that's so funny.
Didn't that? I think the original question was, "Who do you want to see in the playoffs?"
And I don't know where that just went.
I have a funny answer to that. Carolina.
Yeah, me too.
That's who you want to see.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of a systemic reason behind it, like a tactical reason behind it. So Carolina absolutely loves to do their whole relentless forecheck. We're sending 5 men deep into the zone to try and murder you. Well, the Flyers are kind of like the perfect team to just make a series of little 5-foot, 10-foot passes to beat their like 4 guys pinching down below the dots. And all of a sudden it's a breakaway for any Flyers forward besides for Sean Couturier, who physically can't get breakaways. Every other Flyers forward will be feasting on breakaways purely because the Hurricanes, if they don't get you, if they don't, kill the exit with their forecheck and start cycling the puck around and shooting at your net 8,000 times in a cycle of death, if they don't do that, then they're probably going to give up a breakaway. And that's this whole team. Like, that's what this team does, is they just feast on the rush. So give me Carolina, who kind of feeds into that. and just leaves nobody back to defend a rush except maybe Jacob Slavin, who is saying, guys, you already made me do this 30 times. Why? I am tired.
I like that.
And I feel like their scoring output kind of taps out to a certain extent. I feel like we see it in the playoffs all the time. Like they love winning games with 2 to 3 goals or whatever. And the Flyers, they can stay in games with Carolina, like you said.
Well, I put out a joke tweet that was like not entirely a joke tweet in the sense that everybody criticizes the Flyers for not having high-end talent, including me, by the way. But it's not as if the Hurricanes are rich with high-end talent, okay? Aho is just Konecny with good press. Svechnikov is just Owen Tippett with expectations. And Barty Natchez is just Morgan Frost with a Tumblr following. Like, what? They're all the same dudes.
Who wouldn't you want to see? Because I would put Boston and Tampa probably as the 2 teams I don't want to see. I mean, I could get up for a series against either one of them, but if you had to, like, I would rather play a Carolina. I'd rather play like a Metro team than play the top of the Atlantic.
Rangers too for me. I don't think I want to see. I mean, so everybody but Carolina and Florida, I'd be cool on, to be honest.
I kind of want the Rangers one. I don't know what it is. I feel like, I feel like we always struggle, especially on the road in MSG. I definitely feel like we always struggle. But a part of me, like, I want to see the Flyers and Rangers in a playoff series again. I want to see them go at it. I remember 2014 was the last time they faced. They lost in 7. That hurt me deep.
Yeah, it hurt bad. I still never get it. I mean, we were what year was that, Dan?
It was our freshman year of high school. We were like 13.
Jesus Christ. Wow. And it was one of those series that we went into knowing we weren't going to do shit.
Yeah, but I think Emery just started going insane, didn't he, or something?
Yeah. No, yeah.
Or was it Mason? No.
It was Mason.
Yeah. Emery started the series because Mason was hurt, and then Mason came in like game 3.
Like, if Mason started that series from the beginning, we probably win.
Dude, that was like the 2013 onward, like that Giroux era. That was the theme of it. It really was. Every playoff, it was like they're not going to win. They get sparked. They go down like 3-1 in the series, and then their goalie just goes insane and brings them back in the series. Then they barely lose. It's like Michael Neuwirth went insane against the Capitals. Remember that?
I do remember that, dude. We've had a couple of goalies just randomly go nuclear, especially in the playoffs. Like, remember when Boucher was just amazing in 2010 to start the playoffs, and then kind of got taken over before he got hurt. I mean, he was really good before he got hurt in that series, in that entire playoff round.
Goalies are funny, man. They are funny.
We have another question. Kieran F. Could be a dumb question. I mean, Derek, you'll love this one. Could be a dumb question, but is there a timeline on when the goalie prospect Kolosov and I don't know if I'll butcher this, Derek Zavragin? How do you say his name?
I'm not entirely sure. I've been saying Zavragin. I'm hoping that's right.
Is there a timeline on when the goalie prospect Kolosov and Zavragin will be coming over? Big fan of the pod. Appreciate you, Kieran. Derek would know more about timeline. Like, Kolosov wouldn't be this summer, right? It'd be next, or would it be this summer?
Kolosov is coming to North America this summer. His KHL team just made the playoffs today. They got in with the last spot, so he probably won't be around for the season, but he'll be around once his KHL season's done, and he'll probably start next season, probably on the Phantoms, but there isn't. Yeah, there's an outside chance that he could just immediately come right in, and we can do Ersson Kolosov from the jump.
Oh my god!
I think there's some chance of that happening, but I think
can you imagine that?
Oh, it'd be fucking awesome to watch. But I think they're going to want to give him a year in the in Lehigh Valley, get him a little more used to the North American game. The reads are just totally different for goalies, and with Shesterkin and Sorokin and those guys who came right over from the KHL from the jump and were already NHL starters, it isn't even a question of the talent. It's those guys came over at like 25, and Kolosov is going to be coming over at 21, 22. And goalies don't. We kind of saw this with Hart before he fell off the face of the earth. Yeah. Goalies don't even really hit their stride until 24, 25 developmentally. Like they are slow cooking, which kind of brings me to Zafragin. As good as he looks, he's still a goalie in his draft plus 1 season, which means I wouldn't expect him for like 3, 4, maybe even 5 years.
He's still 18 too, so
yeah, it's crazy. Like I wouldn't even expect him to be on the radar to make the Flyers for another 4 years. Even then, he'll be 22. That's super young. Devin Levi back in Buffalo, as highly touted as he is, 21, 22 years old, not handling the NHL all that great right now. Yeah. And it's not because Devin Levi isn't as good as people thought he was. It's because goalies at that age have a rough time in the NHL. All of them. Sure.
Zaragan's numbers, though, despite the fact that he's 18, are absolutely insane, considering where he is, the VHL and the MHL.
Stupid good.
VHL, 16 games, 1.64 goals against average with a 942 save percentage. Then the MHL, he has 9 games played, has a 1.63 goals against average with a 945 save percentage.
This dude's playing be a pro on rookie.
Dude, what the fuck? 18 years old, playing in the MHL and the VHL, putting up those kind of numbers. I don't give a fuck who you are. That is impressive as hell, man. And his birthday is August 23rd, 2 days after mine. This dude is my boy, bro. This is our future. This is our fucking future right here, man. These numbers are insane. I don't give a fuck.
He is so young that he was probably like 2 weeks. His birthday is probably 2 weeks short of being 2024 eligible.
That's nuts. Wow. That is really insane, man. He is like really, really young to be putting up those kind of numbers. Especially, like how good. You would know more than me. Like the VHL, MHL. I know they're not the KHL, but those are still pretty decent leagues. No, for an 18-year-old goalie.
The VHL is a professional hockey league. There are men there. It's either prospects or men playing professional hockey. It's kind of like the AHL equivalent for the KHL. That's their AHL. And, good teams there. Like, for example, Zafragin's team, I believe, was in the KHL until, I don't know whether it was a relegation or a contract dispute or whatever the hell was going on there, but some way, somehow, that whole team is now a VHL team instead of a KHL team. Just to give everybody the idea, there's some interchangeability there. It's pros. Not as good as the KHL, but pros all the same.
So you're saying he's the next Henrik Lundqvist?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Dominik Hasek is loading.
Well, he's Russian, so we'll go with
Vasilevsky.
The goalie for Carolina.
Kochetkov.
We'll just go with Vasilevsky.
There you go, Vasilevsky.
We'll go with Shesterkin.
Shesterkin, yeah.
So we have 4 more questions, but 2 sets of them were kind of the same. So I'll read off the first set of they're kind of the same. So this is from Glenn and then Lucas. Both asked similar questions. Lucas says, who do you want to see moved? Who do you expect it to be moved? And what sort of return do you think we'll be looking at? And then Glenn said, if they trade if they trade Lotz, Walker, Stahl, and Risto, who do you think takes over for the spot? So we can answer the who do you think gets moved questions first. I don't think they trade all of Lawton, Walker, Stahl, and Risto, if that's what you're asking. But we can answer who we think gets moved. So who do you think gets moved there?
I think some team finally does it and overpays for Lawton. I think we've been dancing and beating around this bush long enough. It's time to get it done. As for with the defenseman, I don't know. So one of Walker or Risto is gone, but not 2. And if I had to pick which of the 2, I kind of feel like it's Risto. And I know that contract isn't super easy to move, but it's not impossible to move. And for some reason, I am moved by the fact that, DeMarco's tweeting us out that like it's not a guarantee the Flyers move Walker, and then all of a sudden Risto starts getting introduced into the conversation as a trade candidate. For me, it almost seems like the team is kind of sitting back and saying, well, wait a minute. We could move Walker, sure, and we have to move a defenseman, preferably on the right side. But why would we move the defenseman who really fits what we're doing here? Like Walker is a hand in glove fit for the way they want to play. And Risto is really not. So
despite him being really good since Bradshaw has been taken over. I agree with what you're saying though.
Like I can see why Toronto would want Risto, because like Toronto takes 8,000 years to break the puck out of their own end, like on purpose. Like they just rag that shit around at 5-on-5 as if they're playing 3-on-3. It's kind of hilarious. And I say that endearingly because I really do enjoy watching their 8-year-long breakout strategy until they finally get the puck to William Nylander and he just goes.
Or Matthews, and he just puts it through like 3 guys with sticks and just starts to rush it on the other way. So, all right, I'll do it from here on.
After 8 years of ragging the puck around, they will eventually get the puck to one of those two, and they will just make everything happen.
I think we actually answered that question because me and Danny talked about that earlier. I think we kind of answered that question similarly. I think one of Walker and Risto is safe to say, and then I think they finally pull the trigger on Lawton. So agreed there. The other set is Jay and Leo both asking, basically saying if we trade more than that, or if we just trade that, do we think we see any of the AHL guys? Like Leo said, who out of our prospects, excluding any in the AHL, will be first to play in the NHL? Oh, wait, no, that's a different question. I'm sorry. Who out of our prospects, excluding any in the AHL, will be the first to play in the NHL? That's an interesting question. I'm sorry, Leo. I read that completely wrong to start. Ooh.
So
who? So they can't be in the AHL, right? Excluding, you said.
Excluding the AHL? Matvei Michkov.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Okay. I'm gonna say Bonk.
You know what? I was thinking that one too. That's funny. You guys just said those.
Bonk's already signed to his ELC, so I think Bonk.
That's true. I'm gonna hot take Michkov still, and my logic is gonna be
they might both play at the same time.
Honestly, very possible.
I hope you're right.
So, like, let's say a super realistic timeline for Bonk is 1 more year in the CHL. And then 1 more year, and then 1 year in the AHL, and then he's in the NHL. Oh shit! This goes to what Danny was saying. That timeline is Michkov's timeline. So if Michkov doesn't get out of his contract a day early, then they will play for the Flyers at the same exact time. However, I'm gonna hot take this, and he is gonna, I don't know, he's gonna get the Russian lawyers, and he is gonna find a way to break that contract at least 1 day early, and he will play a Flyers game before Oliver Bonk.
I was just going to ask you, what do you think? Like, what's your hot take with him? Like, do you think he comes over? Because I remember you saying in the group chat, and I mean, you've always been a guy with hot takes, but do you think he breaks that contract earlier than what we all anticipate?
Dude, he's got to be bored. Like, that's what I come back to. That's legitimately what I come back to. Like,
yeah.
As far as what's he going to do? How are they going to occupy his time down there? Because Sochi ain't doing it. And Scott doesn't want to play him because he's young. It has nothing to do with anything hockey related. They have a blanket prejudice towards young players, and not even Michkov can break free of that. So they don't want him. He's young. And Sochi is so monumentally ass that I don't think Michkov can tolerate the presence for another month. So do I really think he's going to put up with 2 more years there? No, I think he finds a way. I think even if he has to pull a freaking Malkin and just jump on the plane and smuggle himself over.
Dude, and he's about to watch the Flyers play playoff games potentially.
Yeah,
that's just going to add to the want and the boredom over in Russia. I feel like
somebody has to bite the bullet. I need somebody in Philly media to find a way to make this happen. Interview Matvei Michkov. Get your translator, get whatever you need, and interview this kid because I want to know where his head's at. And I know he's not going to tell me all the secrets. I know he's not going to like, yo, here's my plan. All right. No, I know that. I want to see his answers because I want to know how he's thinking.
Tucker Carlson will do that for you.
Yeah, no, Tucker Carlson's got this. He's already interviewed Putin, and I think he asked Putin. I think he already asked Putin, like, "Yo, you gonna let Matvei break his contract?"
He's probably like, "Who?"
Nah, it's funny because I'm not going to get all political, but I will say I watched a good portion of that interview, and I have a very hockey-related point that I'm about to make here. But I watched a good portion of that interview, and the first 30 minutes of it is Vladimir Putin breaking out a fucking encyclopedic knowledge of Eastern European history dating back to the 16th century. And this dude is reciting it from memory as if it's as familiar to him as the back of his hand. And people are trying to tell me that he is primarily concerned with where Matvei plays hockey. No. Somebody go listen to that dude talk. And I'm not telling you to think he's a good guy. I'm not telling you to not think he's a bad guy. Just listen to him talk, and you will immediately come to the conclusion that this man has far grander concerns on his mind than where Matvei intends to play hockey in the year 2025.
Yeah, I mean that assertion was always insane, dude. That people actually thought that, but I'm gonna be the one to smuggle him out of Russia. So me and Danny are gonna go there. We're gonna get him, right, Dan?
Right. You're just gonna see it on his Instagram story one day. You're just gonna be at a Wawa.
Oregon Steaks, just posted in front.
Wawa parking lot.
I'm with it, dude. Like that kid needs to come over soon for sure. I think
what a rush that's gonna be, because everything up until then is just we're just daydreaming, you know. We're daydreaming of the day he comes. But imagine that day, and it's like, no, he's debuting on this date, and we finally get that hype train. It's gonna be.
I'll be there.
It's gonna be unreal. I can't wait. All right. Well, this has been episode 106 of the Liberty-O. You can follow us on all socials at the Liberty-O. Follow us on X at TLY Danny, at Chris Stumps, at Suitable Alias.
And go Floor.